This weekend, Virginia International Raceway and the Sports Car Club of America combine to form a mecca for lovers of sports car racing. Almost 500 drivers in over 20 classes do battle in a race for the gold. Since 1964, the SCCA has been crowning national champions at its annual runoffs. It's the peak of the Summit Racing Equipment SCCA road racing program. For the second straight year, welcome to the track that Paul Newman once called Heaven on Earth for the historic 60th running of the SCCA Runoffs. Welcome to Virginia International Raceway as we are here for the 60th running of the SCCA National Championship Runoffs. Our broadcast, of course, presented by our friends at Mazda. Hi, everybody. I'm John Phippen. So glad to be here with you. Alongside me, seven-time solo champion Tom O'Gorman and Hayward Wagner down in the pits as we're getting ready to go with E-Production, one of my favorite classes of all the 24 that are going to race here this weekend. The prod classes really a wide variety of different cars, a wide variety of different driving skills. It's great fun to see, and Hayward Wagner's got his pulse on the grid. Hayward, what you got for us this morning?
Guys, it is a packed grid down here. Usually there's maybe 15, 20 people standing down here to watch. There's probably 100 or so right now. Everybody wants to see what's going to happen in E-Production. On pole, John Hainsworth. John's been a perennial bridesmaid in this class. He is on pole. He's put it in front of the car that's been his nemesis for the last couple of years. Of course, that car was driven by Jesse Prather in the past. It is now Greg Ira. These guys, both of them, the whole time they've been down here, in the car, helmets on, focused. These guys are not a lot of nervous energy between those two. I want to talk real quick about our third car. This is the Lotus 7 of Peter Norton. This is the guy down here that's got a grin on his face. This is the guy who's ready to have some fun on track. And I want to just talk about how bonkers E-Production is. Right here you have outboard Penske Racing shocks, best in the business. One of the a very high-end race piece. But right here, this is the old visor from Peter's helmet that they cut in half and bolted to the car to create a windscreen. So we have ingenuity and engineering on the same car.
Great observation, Hayward, and thanks so much for that. That Lotus 7 looks almost out of place. But, Tomo, we were talking just before we came on air about the fact that this is about the driver who's not here, Jesse Prather, in that BMW, but the car is, as Greg Ira has taken over that car for him.
Yeah, which has left the field pretty much wide open. But I would argue, basically, other than maybe Formula V and Spec Racer Ford, the production classes are still what really represents the core of SCCA club racing. It's one of the oldest categories. E-Production, the fastest of that category now.
Yep.
These are really, really cool and representative of what we are.
Let's take a look at the track map, if you would, Tomo.
So this is going to be the handling sector, starting off the lap, coming down off the green flag into turn 1, and increasing radius corner through turn 2, and sweeping through the fast NASCAR turn 3, always faster than it looks. Then through the lower S's into the snake at 4, 5, and 6, into the high-speed handling section, and stability is really key here. A lot of these cars are going to be going 120 miles an hour, say, at the top of the hill, through 7, 8, 9, into South Bend at turn 10. Critical braking zone, good passing opportunity, and definitely an important exit through 12 at Oak Tree onto that back straightaway. This is the dyno pole. We're going to talk about the BMWs that represent this class in a little bit with this dyno pole, but all the way down Madison Avenue, that back straight, we take that long look uphill, downhill into the roller coaster, then dropping a couple of hundred feet down towards Hog Pen.
Exactly. What a great 17-turn, 3.25-mile track we've got. And this is the second year in a row we've had it, the third time in, 5 years that we've had the runoffs here at VIR. So looking forward to this one. We've got 24 cars on the starting grid. Let's introduce them to you. Outside of row number 12, car 62 is Steve Shelton in his BMW 325 IS. Next to him, the 77 of Yuri Colossus out of the Florida region in a Mazda RX-7. One of 7 rookies in the field starts outside of row 11. That's John Bell out of the Central Florida region in his RX-7. Next to him is the 4 of Anthony Parker from the New England region. He's in a Triumph GT6. In row 10, car 18 is Steve Eckerich out of the Central Carolinas region in a Mazda RX-8. And another rookie next to him, the 98 of Mark Bradley out of the North Carolina region in a BMW Z3. Another rookie starts outside of row 9. That's the 38 of Ron Earp out of the North Carolina region in a Mustang. And then the 17 of Michael Cook from the North Carolina region in an RX-7. Yet another rookie in row number 8 is the car 14 of Matthew Fritz from Central Florida in another BMW 325. And the man making his record 66th, that's right, 66th runoff start. He started in F production yesterday, is the 50 of Mark Webber from the St. Louis region in his Mazda Miata. In row 4, we've got the 33 of Greg Amy from the New England region in a Civic Si. A rookie, the number 48 of Sam Sagassi from the Buccaneer region in an RX-7. In row 6 is the 30 of Steve Rose from the Central Carolinas region in an RX-7. Next to Steve is a rookie, the 136 of David Spillman from the Central Carolinas region in a 325 IS. Into the top 10, outside of row 5, the 122 of Lance Lohman from the Western Michigan region in a Nissan 240Z, and the 9 of Don Tucker from the Mid-South region in a Miata. In row 4, the 61 of Heike Saligren from the Chattanooga region in a Nissan 240Z, and the 44 of Jeff Young from the North Carolina region in an RX-7. The highest placed rookie in the field starts outside of row 3. That's the 41 of Austin Bradshaw from the Oregon region in an RX-7, and the 06 of Doug Piner from the North Carolina region in a BMW Z3. Jon Brakke, a 3-time champion, most recently in 2012, in the 89 car, starts outside of row 2 from the Land O'Lakes region in another of the BMWs. Next to him, Peter Norton. We saw him on the grid from North Carolina region in that Lotus Caterham 7 America. Now for your front row. Car number 2, Greg Ira, 2-time champion, most recently in 2015 in his BMW Z3. That's the ex-Jesse Prather car. And your pole sitter and the Tire Rack Pole Award winner is John Hainsworth at car number 95. That's in the Turf Trader Hoosier Carbotech Mazda RX-7. John is the 2019 Kimberly Award winner for the most improved driver. We talked about it, about the Cold War in this class, and Jesse Prather sort of started it out as the BMW has been so dominant here for the past couple of years.
You could definitely make that argument. Yeah, I was talking to a group of drivers and someone compared e-production and production in general, this category, to the Cold War. If anybody were to act, everyone was a little worried of what would come and how quickly everything would escalate, right? This is kind of, they're comparing it to that has happened in e-production, that everybody knew the ceiling was a little bit higher for a couple of years, and now a couple of drivers have acted on it, and we're in that escalation where for the last couple of years, that BMW Z3, a 20-some-year-old sports car that was never, that notable in motorsports until more recently, it has become this dominant force, and it has the biggest engine in the class. It has much more straight line speed than a lot of the other cars have ever had. But now, with Prather stepping away, some of the other drivers have had a couple years to respond to that escalation. We see John Hainsworth with a much smaller displacement, rotary RX-7 on the pole, less straight line speed, theoretically better handling. It's a very interesting dynamic, and what we have is actually a fairly spread out top 5 in the class, but everybody from 6th to call it 15th is much closer.
Yeah, exactly right. So we're looking for some great battles at the sharp edge of the field, but then maybe a little bit of a transition to the mid pack with the more classic e-production cars. So we'll see how that shakes out as we get ready to roll here. And we'll get a good look at our pole sitter, John Hainsworth, as we mentioned, the Tire Rack Pole Award winner. Tire Rack gives him a nice $500 gift certificate for some tires and a little bit of more swag. Go ahead. One
more fun fact on this field. We had a little stat about all of the drivers that qualified to come to the runoffs versus how many actually came in each class. E-production, 86% of the drivers that qualified for the runoffs are here. These are 25 cars in this category. It's actually a very, very big and popular class.
That's great to see, as some of the classes not nearly that well prescribed. They're lining up 2 by 2. The Honda safety car, by the way, thanks to Sport Durst Mazda in Durham, North Carolina, for providing the safety cars for us. As the leader approaches the acceleration zone, and we're just waiting for that green flag. Once it flies, it's anybody's guess. They can pop out and begin to make their moves. And we've got a green, it looks like, as we're accelerating away. Hainsworth gets a good jump. Let's see if Greg Ira in that BMW can drag race his way down into turn number 1. But Hainsworth, the pole sitter, is going to hang on to it, and he'll lead it. Ira sweeps around the outside. There's Norton in the Caterham right behind him.
Really smart start for Hainsworth. He brought him up a little bit quick and went very early. He knows he doesn't have the acceleration that the BMW has, so he needed some other advantage, and it worked to his favor beautifully.
Exactly. Nose to tail, these top three as they work their way out of NASCAR and into the left hook. Hainsworth with the lead, right behind him, Greg Ira and Peter Norton. And then a little bit of a gap back to Jon Brakke in the red BMW Z3. There he is, the tail end. And then yet another one, the green one of Doug Piner. You can see the Cold War separation already beginning to see. There's a little bit of a gap behind these guys, but a great race going on for 5th and 6th. Austin Bradshaw and Jeff Young nose to tail. Jeff in that TR6 as they make their way into South Bend for the first time, and Greg Ira drops a wheel off at the exit of South Bend. Again, cold tires probably, still getting everything up to pressure and up to temperature.
Yeah, a couple turns of the wheel trying to get the thing into Oak Tree as a big lockup for the 122 of Lance Laumann. It looks like maybe Greg Amy got into the back of him just slightly or was able to just barely avoid in that Civic. It's a very lesser prepped Civic that Greg Amy's wheeling here, but a little awkward moment that's now created a separation up to the next RX-7.
And here we go, the battle for the lead once again as Greg Ira tries to pull out at the top end of the straight, the big end of the Madison Avenue straight, but he falls back in single file, realizing it's just the first lap. As you can see, these drivers working the wheel. Again, these cars still a little cooled, getting the temperature into the tires. It'll take a lap or two. You can see that rotary spewing flames out of the exhaust pipe of our pole sitter, John Hainsworth.
Look at the momentum he was able to carry through Hogpen. He's broken out just a little bit, but that's going to evaporate on every single one of these straightaways. We'll keep an eye on the top speed differences next time through the traps, but Peter Norton has also done a fabulous job of keeping up with this top two as the BMW pops to the outside for a challenge on the lead. I don't think he's quite far alongside, but he's wiggling on the brakes. He's trying it.
Exactly right, but not quite close enough. Norton obviously is going to have the handiest car of the top three. It's certainly the lightest as Ira goes alongside as they go into NASCAR, but he can't maintain that pace, so he'll fall back in single file as these top three beginning to put a little distance on Jon Brakke running in 4th as they work their way through the left hook. It'll be interesting to see each of these three cars is going to have a different strong point on this racetrack.
I would speculate that Sector 1 is best for both Hainsworth and Norton,
yes,
where Sectors 2 and 3 might favor Ira just a little bit more, having such long straightaways included in those sectors.
Yeah, exactly right. Look at the gap they've built up over Jon Brakke already as they're working their way up the climbing S's, every driver's favorite part of this racetrack, and just kissing the curbs. Oh, we've got a big incident involving the 44 car as he goes around. That's Jeff Young. And there was contact. We had a couple big incidents right there at the exit of the Snake, turns 5 and 6 yesterday, and we've got another one today, and a little puff of smoke out of that rotary that may be normal. I don't know.
It tends to be. Look at the pace car trying to get out. Wasn't able to get out in front of the field in time, but I'm curious to see what may have happened. That was Jeff Young getting collected by a handful of cars. The BMW 3 Series of David Spillman was involved along with Greg Amy, but if Jeff Young was involved, that means he was racing kind of back up with Hecky Silligren, Austin Bradshaw for 6th. The cars collected later on are running 11th, 12th, 13th. So not exactly sure how that collection of cars ended up piled up right there.
Yeah, exactly right. So we'll perhaps get a replay and we'll see just how that happens. But the field beginning to pack up, of course. There are safety cars stationed at various places around the track. The one there in the south pits wasn't able to get out in front. Copy that. So we are going to get a safety car pulling out of the pit exit who will pick up the field, and then they'll take them around while the safety crews can attend to the cars involved. And once we get everybody by the starting stripe, there's the safety car ready to pick them up. We get everybody by the stripe, we can tell by process of elimination, and we're already going to go with a red flag apparently, which indicates that we'll bring all the cars into the pits. No, red flag actually means stop where you are.
Yeah. So just based on the collection on the front straight, the last car at the back is Austin Bradshaw, that white and blue RX-7. Just in front is Hecky Silligren in the 240Z. So we have our top 7, but basically everybody else is where that break kind of happened. Really, really heartbreaking to see Jeff Young involved in that. He's been working so hard on that beautiful Triumph TR8 and had a pretty successful outing this year at the runoffs through qualifying. just kind of stopping everything based on track blockage. There's from what we saw, there's no route through the incident without kind of interfering with safety crews, so it's easier to just stop the field.
Exactly right. When they have track blockage like that, it's easier to stop them rather than let them go around and come into the paddock. So a red flag in SCCA parlance as we get a replay of the original start. And again, Hainsworth did a fantastic job knowing that he was going to, perhaps be a bit of a sitting duck to Greg Ira's BMW, and he puts the car right in the middle of the racetrack in the braking zone for this all-important turn number 1. But Ira's able to sweep around the outside. Norton and Brakke right there as well as they work their way through NASCAR the first time through. And as we saw in these first handful of laps, we've completed just that single lap in timing and scoring.
You can tell from just how much track Hainsworth and Norton were using. They know they have to make the most of every single second of this race. They're really at a disadvantage in the most important sections of this race, which is down the straightaways. So Greg Ira was definitely a little more conservative with how much track he was using and how much momentum he was carrying at the green flag, knowing he has the power as soon as we get going in a straight line to make it up.
Exactly. And again, just to refresh you, those of you who may not be familiar with SCCA regulations, a red flag basically means pull safely to the stop and stop on track wherever you happen to be. You don't pack up against the pack as you would if there were a safety car coming out. That would be an all black flag situation. As obviously there are some concerns about the cars involved and some track blockage. So rather than risk the pack having to weave its way through that, they immediately ask everybody to stop, and that's the situation that we're in right now. Hainsworth, Ira, and Norton, your top 3. Brakke coming across the line in 4th. Doug Piner in 5th.
Taking a look on the front straight, that was Lance Lohman's 240Z was able to make it through, and I think it was the blue RX-7 of Steve Rose right behind. I couldn't catch the number, but I'm just going off color here.
Yeah, exactly right. We're going to take a moment to take a break here since we've got a little stoppage. We'll give the track crews a time to do their work, and then we'll be back with you with the conclusion of this race. So thanks so much for being with us. Stand by. We'll be right back.
A car like this shouldn't exist. Something this big, this luxurious, shouldn't move like a Mazda. And yet, it does.
Oh my God, it sounds epic as well. This car is an SUV with bragging rights.
The all-new 3-row Mazda CX-90.
Okay, so pretend this is your race car. It's on the trailer, and you have an accident. Ouch! At least your truck's insurance will pay for another one? Yeah, not so fast. Standard insurance won't replace your race car, whether it's in the trailer, in the paddock, in the garage, or the repair shop. But at Hagerty, we can protect it for what it's really worth anytime it's off the track. No matter what or where you race, offer less than a set of race tires. Hagerty, let's drive together.
Words telling us that we're back with you as we'll get the continuation of this e-production race after a pretty scary incident down at the lower S's, if you will, the section of the track we call the Snake. We're happy to report that all drivers walked away, but took a little while to get the course cleaned up, but we're getting the field formed back up, and we'll get the restart underway here momentarily. So John Hainsworth, the pole sitter. There goes Greg Ira, Peter Norton, Jon Brakke, as we're getting ready to come to the restart. It'll be a single file restart, just as we had. You can see the... Yeah, okay, so we're just getting confirmation from race control. We're going to pull everybody into the pits so that they can reshuffle the order and then send them back out for another formation lap. So this is just getting the field, since we had a red flag situation, everybody had to stop in place on track. This is getting the field all back into the pit lane. Some of the cars already made it in, so it'll take them a while to make it happen.
Yeah, just understanding what we did with Spec Miata yesterday in a similar situation.
Yep.
We assume, this is unofficial, we'll see a single file restart in the order the cars were stopped. These cars, this is your lead pack with John Hainsworth in that black RX-7 with the lead, was stopped right before the turn in of turn 1 or so. So they do have to do a full lap. And we were hearing from Hayward that car was a little rough to start from grid this morning, and a little bit rough to refire. If he had turned it off, we were speculating, it's a little sketchy to get some of these race motors started again under their own power. But this is a replay of the incident. We're seeing Jeff Young in the blue TR8 spinning on his own up, was rolling back in, decided to pull forward, trying to get back off the track, and unfortunately David Spillman had assumed the car would stay stationary, was not able to evade, and neither was Greg Ira. So those 3 cars, we believe, are the only 3 involved with the incident. And again, it seemed to be a self-spin and just trying to get reoriented, realizing Jeff Young himself was in the middle of the track, trying to get himself out of harm's way, especially facing driver's side, broadside on the racetrack. Did try to pull forward, and Spillman was not able to avoid. Also, Greg Ira not able to avoid that incident. So that was your 7th place driver, 11th place and 14th place respectively as they were encountering that incident. I think as we're speculating, everybody else was able to get through or evade that pretty cleanly.
Yeah, we can see the 122 of Lance Lohman. He was right in the thick of it. He made the decision to dodge to the driver's right, which was the right one, as Jeff Young was pulling forward, so he was able to skirt by without any further incident. So again, we'll get the cars into the pit lane. It'll give them a chance to get everybody back into the correct order, as timing and scoring will determine who is where, and then we'll have a single file restart, we believe. That's the latest information that we've heard from officialdom. As you can see, the grid workers doing their job, getting everybody lined up into the correct order right now. So it gives us a little extra time, Tombo, to talk about, you know, this Cold War that we sort of alluded to during the run-up to the race. Production classes are in a stage of transition anyway. I've been calling runoffs for a long time, and I can remember when production classes were all Little British sports cars for the most part. But now we've got, much more contemporary cars coming in, and there's this constant evolution of preparation, what the rules allow, what each of the cars can do, and so we've got kind of a mishmash, and it takes somebody, a forward-thinking developer, a guy like Jesse Prather, to say, hey, man, take this old BMW and we can make a race car out of it, and suddenly he revolutionizes the whole class, and everybo's got to play catch-up.
You're right. I grew up on the fence at Mid-Ohio listening to you call the runoffs when I was a kid, and I that's what I remember. I remember midgets, sprites, Heelys, Elva Couriers.
Yeah.
I forget the driver that won with an Elva a bunch of years in a row. But
Mark Donohue, among others.
Sure, and now we've seen it transition towards, the older cars in the field are late 80s RX-7s, right, and late 90s BMWs, a lot of Miatas.
Yeah.
In F production, we're getting a lot of those Hondas, the front-wheel drive style cars.
Right.
And with that comes, pushing the chassis to what those cars were capable of in the 80s, 90s, to early 2000s, and doing the same thing, which production, if you're not familiar, means it's the production chassis that came from the factory, it's the production engine that came in that chassis, but otherwise you're building a race car. It's a race motor, it's race suspension, factory pickup points, I believe, but you can massage the bodywork. Clearly, they've all chopped the windshields off if it's any sort of Targa or convertible. So they're pushed really, really far within that same scope of what those cars were in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, they can't go full tube frame. That gets into GT when
Correct.
You start doing that, a silhouette car.
So it's created this really interesting environment where what car, what chassis, what engine would you not think of as a race car, but then you get a little creative. We're looking at the Z3 specifically. That car doesn't have much racing pedigree in
right.
history, but when you when you look at building a race car out of this production engine and chassis, you have a big engine for the class. You have a car that you can massage all of the stuff that maybe wasn't so great for racing back when it was new, but is now capable of turning it into a production race car. And you find these really cool combinations that no one would have thought of. The other car I think of is the Honda Civic Del Sol in F production that came home second and has won national championships.
Started from the pole.
Yeah. When do you see other than Gran Turismo a Civic Del Sol race car?
Yeah.
Well, it works really well within the scope of SCCA production.
Exactly.
When do you see a Z3 race car? Well, it works really well in the scope of this class and category. So when you start to really push those limits, that's where the engineers in the prep shops like Prather Motorsports, like this car that is now not able to get itself started, the Eckrich built engine, you can get a lot more out of these cars than you think when you apply it to this specific production rule set. As we see John Hainsworth finally getting the car fired.
Big sigh
Deep
of relief.
breath. Yep.
Yes.
and he will resume this race that he had started. I think he started masterfully. He did everything he needed to do to continue to keep himself in the catbird seat. Is that what you call it? The top
that
spot?
works.
Sure.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
When he's really, in my opinion, at a slight disadvantage, he needs to run a more perfect race than Greg Ira does based on the style of track and the style of the way the cars make speed.
Let's go down to Hayward Wagner. He's got eyes on. Go ahead, Hayward.
Yeah, guys, a lot of activity down here at the moment. All the grid workers had to come down because they're the ones that actually arrange the cars in order for this restart. So we got pit workers and grid workers trying to arrange cars. As you saw, the Hainsworth car continues to be a challenge to get it started. And you can just feel the tension when the grid workers are telling them they need to stage up. They're trying to decide, do we start it now? Do we wait? They do not want that car to sit still running any longer than it absolutely has to. Meanwhile, Greg Ira is having radio issues. So he saw the red flag, didn't know what happened, where it happened, because they never made it back to the area where the incident was. So he didn't know who it was, what it was, if they were okay, any of that information. So both cars on the front of the field right now, some distractions, shall we say, as we get the rest of them cleaned up.
Great, Hayward. Thanks for that insight. We got the word from you earlier on that Hainsworth was having a little trouble getting that car fired, and we can see the grid workers having to give him a push start to get it refired here now. So that is certainly going to put a little worm in his head that is this guy going to be reliable and get to the end?
Right, and so we're assuming that we'll see a very similar restart to yesterday's Spec Miata. The difference is we did go to a proper red flag in this race. We're back to a black flag, which restarts the clock, now sitting on pit lane reorganizing with the clock running. So there are 31 and a half minutes or so left in the race clock right now. We would be starting on lap 3.
Yep.
Yesterday, Spec Miata had a time limit applied to it based on how much time was left in the day. Now today, with our GT1 race being pulled from the schedule, we have a little bit more wiggle room. So hopefully this will be just whatever time is left on the clock when we go is the amount of race time we'll see.
And right now, that looks like about 18 minutes as it stands right now, as we've been down for about 31 minutes. They have the option to stop the race clock during a red flag, but they elected to let it run. And so we've got about 18 minutes going here to go. And so it will obviously be a timed race. We won't have time to get all 15 laps in. But these guys, at full chat, doing laps right at 2 minutes. So we would expect with 18, by the time we get the green flag, maybe 15 minutes, we'll have seven laps or so. So Hainsworth, Ira, Norton, Brakke, and Piner, your top 5. Hecky Silligren made a good jump up into 6th spot after starting at 8, so picked up a couple spots. Jeff Young is still showing in the order, but he will obviously not be taking the restart because that car did not get the best of that contretemps going on there in the S's. David Spillman also involved. Greg Ira, as we mentioned, a couple of the cars that involved in that. And it looks like they're getting ready to roll them out, but getting mixed signals from the grid worker there. So we'll stand by and see what the situation is. Go ahead.
I was going to say, with the clock running, the grid workers feel the pressure just as much as the drivers to get this thing going again.
Exactly.
And I believe the car's off camera, so it would be Piner, and then I think the next car was Hecky Silligren running in 6th.
Right.
Austin Bradshaw would be 7th. Then we saw Lance Lohman in the 122. The Yellow Z would probably be 8th, and the 30 of Steve Rose in a Blue RX-7 should be 9th. I think that's your running order, but that's just based on how they stopped on the front straight. So we'll have to see
Yeah,
what
you can
grid reorganizes.
Just see the nose of Piner's car right behind
Yep.
Jon Brakke, so we know that he's up there in that order.
So Brakke, one of the drivers making the switch to kind of noticing that arms race towards the BMW with the fast top speeds, the big engine. He's been consistently in a Miata for a bunch of years, and I didn't even notice the first day of qualifying because he replicated what the Miata looked like so well onto the BMW.
Exactly.
You see the same exact font, the same exact livery, everything was identical.
Right.
And the second day, I'm like, oh wait, it's a BMW. So that driver making the switch and running immediately right back in the top 5.
Sure. Which is no surprise. I mean, as we mentioned, he's a 3-time champion. But he's had a bit of a dry spell. He hasn't had a gold medal since 2012. So looking forward to seeing what John could do with these potent guys in front of him. Hainsworth keeps creeping forward, and I wonder if that's just to keep make sure he keeps the engine running, because he's a little concerned that getting it started is going to be a problem. We can see, looks like the 1 minute one finger being raised by one of those grid workers.
I'm seeing 5.
5, yeah, you're absolutely right.
So what we're waiting to hear from race control for sure, but right now the clock, I had it backwards. We've elapsed 35 minutes of the race. We have 5 minutes on the clock. If they're giving a 5 on grid, they will give them some amount of race time. We just haven't heard yet. Sorry to be a little unclear.
Looks like they, let me just make sure that my timing screen has not frozen. Yeah, because they do not yet hit. Okay, so we're going to see the initial start one more time, just to get us back into the mood. As we can see Jon Brakke in that BMW pulling side by side with Peter Norton. But the battle at the front, Hainsworth did absolutely the best possible job of keeping Greg Ira behind him. And after all, he's on the pole. The car is clearly quick. As they made their way through NASCAR, still nose to tail.
And I mentioned, watch how much track they use, both Norton and Hainsworth, all the way to the track limit, out to the dirt, where Ira a little more conservative. But even after that one acceleration zone from turn 1 to 3, the BMW had closed in until they start to go through the twisty bits a little bit more. And you'll see the difference in the way these cars make speed is going to be the story for however much longer they get to race. Norton doing a great job keeping up, and then a couple of those cars spreading out. Now this is the incident, a self-spin for Jeff Young, decides to try to pull off the track, get out of the way. David Spillman in the BMW and Greg Ira in the Civic, both not able to evade based on Jeff Young making his choice to pull forward.
And obviously some debris from Young's car spread around the track, so that took just a little longer to get that cleaned up. And again, we just want to reinforce that we got the report that all the drivers walked away from the incident, so that's certainly the news we want to see. Let's talk about our Hawk Performance Breakthrough winner, and that's Austin Bradshaw. The Hawk Performance Breakthrough Award is a set of brake pads awarded to the driver who improves the most positions between first qualifying on Tuesday and second qualifying on Wednesday. And unfortunately, because the weather was a little spotty in the morning for some of our qualifying sessions, this was one of them where they didn't really have the chance to make a big improvement. And so Hawk Performance decided, okay, we'll just make it a lottery. So they drew a raffle, and Austin Bradshaw was the raffle winner. So he gets the opportunity to get that free set of brake pads for either his race car or his one of his street cars.
And that's a great point from the week too. There are 3 days of qualifying. You get 1 session per day. Wednesday, day 2 of qualifying, was a surprise. Some really strange weather. It was basically so foggy that the track kept getting slippery.
Yeah.
And it would sort of mist a little bit, but it never got wet and it never really rained. It was just a very strange kind of misty, moist morning. E-production was one of the categories that was heavily affected by that, and they really only got the 2 days of qualifying, of which all of the drivers, for the most part, were faster on day 3, their second day of legitimate qualifying. So their week was a little bit affected, and that's where John Hainsworth was able to go a little bit quicker than Greg Ira in that last qualifying session. But that's, as you mentioned, why they decided to do the random draw for everybody who went out, to basically reward their perspective. The Hawk Performance representatives on site, their perspective was, your race might also have this strange weather. Sure. If you're making the choice to go out and learn these conditions, you're doing your due diligence, you're doing your research, you should be rewarded for that. So everybody who went out was thrown in the hat, and Austin Bradshaw is the winner.
Exactly right. So we're coming around to the start. We now have the official time of 11 minutes and 30 seconds remaining as we run. So by the time we get to green, it'll be about 10 minutes. So that's going to be a 5-lap sprint, it sounds like, for these drivers. as everybody will come by the line and we can verify the running order for everybody. Hainsworth, Ira, Norton, and Brakke, your top 4. Doug Piner in 5th. Hecky Silligren in 6th. Then Austin Bradshaw, Lance Lohman in 8th. Sean Sagasi in 9th position. Steve Rose in the 10th spot. Don Tucker in the 9 is 11th. Matthew Fritz in the 14 is 12th. Ron Earp is in 13th. Steve Eckerich in 14th. Mark Webber in his 67th start in the number 50 car. Rounds out the top 15. Then it's Michael Cook, Anthony Parker, John Bell, Mark Bradley, and there'll be 19 cars basically taking the restart. Jeff Young, David Spillman, and Greg Ira, as we saw, will not take the restart. So lights are out on the safety car, so we are ready to roll. There's Greg Ira in the ex-Prather BMW, the one that started it all, if you want to say that. And safety car pulls in. Once again, thanks to Sport Durst Mazda in Durham, North Carolina for providing all the Mazda safety cars for us. You can see the start zones there on the right. It's up to the pole sitter at that point, or the leader at that point, to make the decision.
Ira hanging back just a little bit, rolls up on the bumper towards Hainsworth just as they approach that zone, and look at the jump he got. He's going to be able to pull right alongside into the braking zone and kind of left Peter Norton out hanging way behind. So they're side by side coming down into turn 1 again. Hainsworth is going to be a little bit better on the brakes. Keeps that point as our top 5 or 6, as we suspected, are going to spread out just a little bit, but the top 3 very, very close.
Yeah, Ira much more aggressive here on this restart, realizing he's only got a handful of laps to get this done. As we get a good look at the 61 of Hecky Silligren, we talked about him, and then right behind him, the RX-7 of Don Tucker as they work their way through left hook. There's Lance Lohman, who just missed the incident that brought out the red flag. And the rest of the field coming through left hook. As we'll get a look at the middle pack of the field. The 162 of John Bell in that yellow and orange BMW.
Sounds of E-production. That was cool.
Yeah, the green Drive Treaty 8 of Anthony Parker looking great. But here we are back at the front in the battle for second right now, as it is Greg Ira and Peter Norton nose to tail. John Hainsworth did a good job on that first sector and got himself up into a bit of a clear lead. And then, as we saw in the first start, Jon Brakke in the red BMW dropping back just a little bit. So the battle right now is for second between Ira and Norton.
But Brakke doing a better job than the initial start to stay in touch. We had a 3-car breakaway. On this restart, we have a 4-car breakaway, with Brakke able to stick on to the back of that top 3. And Peter Norton made up so much distance through the uphill S's, I couldn't even quantify it. He was well back until they got through South Bend. All of a sudden, he's right on the back of Greg Ira, pressuring.
Sean Sagasi doing a great job right up behind Lance Lohman. He's picked up a couple spots up just outside the top 10. Right behind them is the 9 of Don Tucker, who's dropped back just a couple spots.
Check out the 14 of Matthew Fritz carrying the inside front on power through the exit of the roller coaster. That BMW a little soft in the back and completely stationary front tire in the air going through the corner. It was pretty cool.
Exactly right. See Lohman in that brilliant yellow 240Z. And then this battle just behind him between the 148 of Sagasi, and there's the 9 of Don Tucker trying to go around the outside. Tucker in the Miata Roadster, staying with it right to the outside. He'd love to see these outside passes at turn number 1, because if he can hang there, he's got the inside coming into NASCAR, and he makes it work.
Keeps the momentum up, and this is the realm of cars that we were saying. The top 5 to 15 are the ones that are all really close in qualifying. That's the battle we're watching essentially. Lohman through Sagase, we'll throw the other BMW of Matthew Fritz in there. These drivers all qualified within a second or 2 of each other, so they were going to have a good race no matter what.
Yeah, Steve Rose at the tail end of that battle, so we're right at the tail end of the top 10 with this 4-car battle. And then moving a little further forward, we've got the Silligren in the 240Z, and then right behind him, the RX-7, number 41 of of Austin Bradshaw. As they're climbing the hill. We've got about 6.5 minutes remaining.
So This is the battle for 6, just outside of the podium positions. The green BMW ahead is Doug Piner in no man's land down the back straight. But here we have a pass for the lead, side by side for Hainsworth and Ira. Hainsworth better on the brakes, able to maintain the point, and they're going to get, I would bet, 3 more laps coming across the line this time, maybe only 2. We're in critical territory right now for all 4 of these drivers battling for the gold.
Exactly right, and it is a 4-car battle. Jon Brakke is not that far back, but Hainsworth gets such a great run down through Hog Pen and is really able to put a couple of car lengths on Greg Ira as he comes onto this long front straightaway. But again, the straight line speed, you talked about it, of Ira's car gives him an advantage. Now he's alongside a little earlier. Let's see if he's going to be able to outbrake him down into turn 1 or at least hang on the outside, but not quite. Hainsworth really good on the brakes.
Hainsworth a little too good. He goes a little wide, misses the apex of turn 1 and has to get to throttle late. Greg Ira able to complete that over-under beautifully and goes to the top, and that is exactly what John Hainsworth didn't want because this is his sector. He needed to lead it every single lap. Now he's going to watch Greg Ira drive away a little bit as soon as they get out of the lower S's. Peter Norton still hanging onto the back, and with that exchange, Jon Brakke is properly in this battle.
Exactly right. So these are the 4 that will settle the podium amongst them most likely with 5 minutes remaining.
Give you an idea of top speeds. Last time at the end of the back straight, Greg Ira 144 miles an hour. John Hainsworth and Peter Norton both 136 and 134 respectively. So it's 8 miles an hour or so different for this BMW to the advantage of the BMW.
In the climbing S's, you can see just how well Hainsworth's car is working. That RX-7 can get right back on the bumper of Greg Ira's car. But if these two get a good exit here, Ira should be able to march away down Madison Avenue here once he gets that car up on the cam. Look at Norton right on the back of Greg Ira. Ira's going to have a little more pull, I think, and Norton's going to have a disadvantage in straight line speed.
Yeah, weaving as well to try to break that draft, and Hainsworth wasn't really following him. Now we're cutting back to the battle for 8th or so. This is Lance Lohman in the yellow Z leading Don Tucker and Steve Rose. Tucker going for the outside, grabs the curb. It's a little risky to do that, loosen the car up, and he has to slow it down a little more than he wanted. Not able to complete that pass. It's the number 30 of Steve Rose, and then right behind Sean Sagasi in the red RX-7, a pair of those. You see the Z of Lohman also trying to break that draft so that the Miata is not as close in the braking zone for the roller coaster.
Yeah, Matthew Fritz right at the tail end of that number 14 BMW as well. As Lohman showing the way here. And he's got the straight line speed, it looks like, to hold him off. Greg Ira in the lead as they came across the line. That's what we're seeing on timing and scoring. So Hainsworth wasn't able to repay the favor, but this is a great battle between Lohman and Tucker.
Tucker looks pretty healthy in a straight line as well, able to cling onto the back of the 122 of Lohman down the entire back straightaway. Now cutting back to the battle for 3rd. Peter Norton, a lot of pressure from Jon Brakke in the red BMW. And we're check to see, it looks like Ira was able to build a pretty good gap down the front straightaway to Hainsworth. Hainsworth is kind of losing touch.
Looks like, again, we'll just have to see how it drops. We may see the white flag next time by, but they might sneak under quickly enough that we can see 2 more laps, but I'm guessing it'll be 1 more next time by, as once again Norton losing a little ground here as the top 2. In fact, here comes Brakke. He's going to try to make a move coming into the climbing S's. That is a brave move indeed, but he was able to make it stick. Peter Norton gave him racing room, but that was a bit dodgy.
I don't think Peter Norton thought he was going to actually try it, but Brakke was brave enough to go there, and it surprised Norton just enough to make him faint just to the side. Oh, and it looks
I
like
heard
a mistake.
The tires
that
squeal.
Was definitely a mistake from Ira.
We heard that before the camera panned over to it, as Ira was a little too hot coming into Oak Tree, and he had to cross it up and sacrifice his exit. And they're side by side. Hainsworth is sticking right with him, but you can see as we get up to what I call terminal velocity, where that car is really at the top of its rev range, Ira is a little bit quicker, and as we saw in the speed traps, he's several mile an hour faster at the top end of the straight. But Hainsworth's so good on the brakes, can stay right with it.
Yeah, that brought him right back into the fight. So now we have a battle for the 1st spot, a battle for the 3rd spot, as Norton is going to try to cling onto the back of Brakke, who made the pass stick into those uphill S's. Hainsworth, unfortunately, not able to master the hog pen corner the way he would like because he's physically limited by the back bumper of Ira, who's now he's got to just kind of watch drive away. He will help with the draft, though. That RX-7 should get a nice little tow from the back, and indeed, white flag in the air, but Hainsworth is right there. He's able to pop out and make a move.
Yeah, exactly right. But that drag from hog pen to the stripe is the one that's going to come into play the next lap, assuming that Greg Ira can hang on to the lead as they come off of the roller coaster. Hainsworth losing just a little bit of ground in the exit there of turn 1 as Ira a little handier through that section of the racetrack. Into NASCAR he comes.
Yeah, Hainsworth outbraking himself yet again, gets a little too wide and not able to do anything with that run. Maybe got a little too excited that he was actually in the fight once again, but he's done a really good Sector 1 since then and is going to pull right back up. He just learned if I can draft right behind this BMW, I can actually be in the fight.
Yeah, exactly right. He lost a lot of ground in the climbing S's on the last lap, but then made it all up, and Ira made that mistake up in Oak Tree. So let's watch him as they climb the hill this one last time at speed. And Hainsworth is right there on his bumper. Oh, but he drops a couple wheels off coming into South Bend and throws it away. Oh, man, that's tough.
No, he had the right idea, but wrong execution. Was
No
going to go
kidding.
for the pop-up the inside into South Bend. It's a great move to surprise somebody if you can make it happen. And now look, Peter Norton and Brakke know they're both racing for medals, but they want the silver now. Norton not able to find the gap, but gets a great run off the back straight. I don't think he's going to be able to do anything with it. But man, heartbreak for Hainsworth. You could see the urgency. He knew he needed to make something happen, and he was going to try anything that he could think of.
Yeah, exactly right. Norton, trying to make that Lotus as small as possible and get in the draft of Brakke's much bigger BMW and give him just an opportunity for a sniff at it as they come down the roller coaster. But I don't think he's close enough. So it looks like BMW's 1-2 here. Unless Greg Ira makes a terrible mistake. Oh, Brakke a little unstable. Norton dives to the inside. It's not over yet. Greg Ira's well out in front. Norton right on the back bumper of Brakke. Can he get a good exit here? Brakke goes a little wide. I think Norton's still in it as they get a good run. He tucks in behind to the draft. Will he pop out in time? But I think Brakke's got enough straight line speed that he's not going to have that opportunity. Greg Ira takes the win, and he is a happy camper as that car continues its winning ways, this time with Greg Ira behind the wheel. Jon Brakke comes home in second, holding off a valiant challenge from Peter Norton at the end. And then a little deeper in the pack, Doug Piner, not yet across the line.
But this was a great battle with Don Tucker and the two RX-8s of Sagase and Rose. Sagase able to get by Rose this lap somewhere before timing and scoring, and now is getting real racy on the back of Don Tucker in the MX-5, who's a little bit shallow. Is going to run wide now. Oh, very awkward, and that actually catches out Sagase. Rose is able to cut back underneath and take that spot back. This should be the battle for they're touching each other, pushing each other off the track for about 8th. Realizes he made the mistake and says, I'm sorry. But this is intense stuff for what I believe is the 8th position. Yes. No, 7th. Don Tucker brings home 7th.
Yeah, with our Bolstetter Hainsworth falling out, that moves them all up one spot. This battle was all for 8th on the last lap. And then right behind them, another good battle near the tail end of the field as we are watching the 162 of John Bell working his way toward the line. That's in 18th spot. And right behind him, the ageless Mark Webber continues his string of finishes as he comes across the line. Mark Webber, this is his 67th runoff start. Hard to believe. We've only been doing the runoffs for 60 years, and of course he runs multiple classes almost every year, E&F production for the past several years, and that gives him that start total. But he is the leader in runoff starts, but a very, very happy Greg Ira taking the win. And, that was not a gimme. I think Hainsworth, made a mistake and really gave him the opportunity to make it happen. But Hainsworth was there to challenge.
Yeah, just behind our camera here, you can hear the crowd in the grandstands cheering for Greg Ira. I can't wait to hear, how many different phases of the emotion for this race he went through, because he was on the back foot, then they were stopped on the racetrack, then they were stopped in pit lane, then they had to resume, and then all of a sudden
Hainsworth going to get his car started.
Yeah, it's like it had to be an emotional roller coaster for all of them, and Brakke and Norton putting on a great show as well. Maybe we can find John Hainsworth as well if he gets back to pit lane. I know it's not going to be his favorite moment to be on camera, but he really did. Again, I said you could see the urgency, but you could also see how bad he wanted it in the way he was trying everything he could think of. Just right ideas, not quite the execution that he needed to take this one home, but I'll still tip my hat to him.
Yeah, he and Lance Lohman are the 2 cars a lap down. I wonder what happened to Lohman, because he was right at the head of that battle we were watching with Don Tucker and Steve Rose. Lohman obviously had a problem on the penultimate lap as well. As the rest of the field working its way through. Matthew Fritz finishing in the 10th spot, just outside the top 10. Steve Eckerich came home in 11th. Ron Earp in 12th. The car we're seeing right now is the 4 of Anthony Parker in that Triumph GT6.
And that's cool to see just that car not only on track but finish the race. They've been working on that car tirelessly. I mean, we were out in the paddock making questionable choices till 11 p.m. and they were still there working on the car last night. But he qualified 21st and not only finishes the race but climbs all the way to 13th. Definitely a contender for that Sunoco Hard Charger Award.
Absolutely he is, yeah, no question. Luck is the residue of design is on the back of Mark Webber's car. I've got one of his wristbands on here. 50 years of great competition, he says. Mark Webber, for many years, a photographer for SCCA Racing. But let's head down to trackside as we've got Hayward Wagner with our winner.
We have a very happy Greg Ira down here getting the Hoosier Band, the gold medal. Greg, how does the 3rd championship feel?
Oh man, y'all catch us at the wrong time, at the right time. Unbelievable, and Hainsworth was. What a clean race, and he gave it everything. And I had an over and under move, which is something I've worked on for a long time. And he gave it one last shot up in 10, and it wasn't any line there for him. And anyway, what an awesome race, and I can't believe the outcome. And it was tough sitting out there on pit road on the main straightaway in a red flag condition. So. Congrats to John for driving a great race while we were doing it. The fumes in that car are pretty tough to deal with.
I'm sure you got a few people you need to thank.
Oh, for sure. Blue Ocean's my wife's company sponsorship, and of course JPM, Jesse Prather with all the opportunity to drive this awesome machine, and my crew members that are here this weekend, and of course my gigantic family that treks all over the United States to watch us, and I just had a great time, and thanks a lot to Prather and JPM.
I've seen Jesse pack about a half a dozen people into this car for a victory lap. You got anybody you taking with you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, anybody that can fit in here. Of course, Jesse and whatever other crew guys are around, Cliff or Guy or Amy. Amy, if you're around, come over here and we'll go for a quick lap.
Congratulations to you, sir. Enjoy that victory lap.
Well, that answers the question that we were talking about. Jesse Prather obviously still involved in the prep work on that car. As you can see, Greg Ira celebrating. His brother Cliff having a pretty good weekend. He didn't get the gold medal, but was right in the thick of the podium battle for his race as well. There's no hands on the wheel. Let's go down to Hayward with the rest of our podium.
John, it was just another typical E-Production race, right? Nothing unusual here, was there?
Oh, nothing unusual at all. I've never had to sit in the red flag situation for this long.
What is your mindset when you got a good start and then you come to stop? How hard is it? Do you try to keep the intensity up? Do you try to relax and bring it back? How does that feel?
Try to relax and then get concentrated once your car's rolling again.
Well, congratulations to you on the silver. We're going to talk to our bronze place, our 3rd place finisher. You, sir, were the only one smiling on grid. This smile seems to have been there the entire time. What I want to know is, what did you think when you saw Hainsworth go off and know that you're going to be on the podium with a shot for second? What was your mindset in that moment?
Yeah, I didn't. There was no, I was just, okay, he's off, keep driving.
This car looks like it is just a blast to drive. It looks like you had just a lot of fun this week. What has this experience been like for you, and how does it feel to cap it off with a bronze?
It's wonderful. Nothing I love more than going racing with the family, and yeah.
Well, congratulations to you. Enjoy it.
Thank you so much.
Great to hear from Peter Norton, obviously having a good time with that car in only his 4th runoff start. He has a 2nd place here a year ago. He finished at 2nd. Here's the top 10 rundown with Greg Ira, your winner, Jon Brakke and Peter Norton. We've seen those 3. Doug Piner holding on for that 4th place finish. Heike Seilegren finishing in the 5th spot. Austin Bradshaw in 6th. We saw that battle all race long. Don Tucker at the tail end of that group. And then Steve Rose, Sean Sagassi, and Matthew Fritz, the 4 cars that we followed for much of that last lap. You can see the interval, only a couple seconds separating the four of them in that pack of cars.
I kind of thought Hayward was going to jump in with Greg Ira for that cooldown, but he had a little more work to do. But man, for a 10-minute sprint, they all made the most of it. Very entertaining.
Here come the highlights as we get a replay of the start. We've seen this a couple times already. Hainsworth getting a dynamite start, and Greg Ira doing what he needed to do to just stay in contention. Peter Norton there in the yellow Caterham as we work our way through, still at the initial start. Hainsworth and Ira's nose to tail, and it quickly became a four-car race even in the very early stages. And then we had this big incident involving the 44 of Jeff Young. Fortunately, all the drivers walked away, but that set up this battle and the pass for second right there on the final lap as Jon Brakke stuffed it down to the inside. And then prior to that, we had Hainsworth and Ira go side by side as Ira overcooked it coming out of hog pen, and Hainsworth thought, okay, I've got one more opportunity, but then he drops two wheels off at the top of the climbing S's, and it's all gone from there. As Lance Loban on the final lap, that's where he had his problem as he pulled off into the south pits, and that opened the door for that great battle, finally ending up with Don Tucker out in front. That's Jesse Prather holding the checkered flag as they celebrate that car's fifth victory, I guess it would be. So a great job for him. But thanks so much for being with us. Sorry for the interruption, but we got a great race in at the end in E-Production. On behalf of Tom O'Gorman and Hayward Wagner, I'm John Phippen. Stay with us for more racing for the 60th running of the SCCA National Championship Runoffs. We'll see you down the road.
My customer experience with Mazda has been absolutely fantastic.
I'm probably not the richest person out here, and they're extremely reasonably priced, and you can buy parts easily, and it's a class that fits both what I want from a racing standpoint and what I can afford.
We got into Mazdas largely just because it's a fantastic platform, and Mazda Motorsports has some of the best support for the grassroots racer in parts and technical advice and everything else, so they make it easy for us to run these cars.